What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this I'm going to be breaking down some very important information about NIO, talk a little bit about earnings that just came out, what happened for Friday, also break down why this week is going to be massive for the markets and how it's going to affect SPY and Tesla and NIO and the QQQ, as to give you guys some predictions and break down some very important levels. Before I break down about all this information, before I talk about what's going on with NIO and what just came out with their reports, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. Also, I'd appreciate it if you guys smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Put in $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $100 cash reward. So that's free money. That's the reason why I promote these. Free money will come to you if you simply sign up and put in $100 into the account. Offer ends in a couple of weeks, and I'll see you guys very soon on that. But anyways, let's talk about the markets. Let's talk about NIO. What just happened? NIO was down 0.77% for the day on Friday. Got a very nice pop in the morning, up almost 12%. But then after that, the market slowed down and NIO slowed down as well. NIO closed a little bit in the red, but it wasn't that significant because you have to remember, NIO is only in the $7 area. So for it to move 10%, it just needs like a 77-cent move, basically, right? So my point is, it just needs to move a couple of pennies for it to get like a 0.1% move or something like that, right? Very, very small amounts of price action is all it's going to take. So only dropped a couple of pennies, basically, and that means a 0.77% drop compared to like Thursday. So my point is very minor. It's a very, very minor drop it had, and nothing significant whatsoever. Closed very flat, and it actually proved a lot of people wrong. There were a lot of people saying that NIO was going to crash after earnings. NIO was going back to $5. It held up and actually pumped for a large part of yesterday. On Friday. Sorry about that. Overall, it's holding up, but the question is, how is it going to move going forward? And that's going to depend a lot on the data coming out for the week, as it's going to impact the entire markets. I'm going to break that down in just a couple of minutes and then talk about SPY and the others. But first, let's talk about the news. The news is saying that NIO has some good forecast for the second quarter. They want about 25,000 deliveries. I think they gave us a range between 23 and 25,000. I saw it right here. So that's what they're expecting for the second quarter. Now, if you consider the fact that they did just under 13,000 for the first 2 months of the quarter, that tells us that NIO needs to give us a 10,000 month for June. They're expecting it, or even as high as like 13,000. So 10 to 13,000, somewhere between there. That would be very, very awesome for NIO moving forward. I really hope NIO could do it. And if they do it, that's going to be bullish. However, what else is good for NIO, another reason why it pumped, is not just this, but also because NIO warned us that yes, the second quarter may not be the strongest, but Q3 and beyond is going to be strong for them. They're saying that they should be expecting a 20,000 delivery month this year. They said we're going to see big improvements by the second half of the year. And they're saying that just get ready, things are going to improve for their ES6. They said by July, they are expecting 10,000 deliveries alone just from the ES6. It's very popular. And they're telling us not to worry, things are going to improve. So we'll see if that happens. We should be getting a good report for June, and the report's going to come out at the end of June. So going into like early July is when we're going to see the next numbers. That's just a couple of weeks away. So it's going to be big for the company. Now, NIO also is going to be launching globally. The NIO ET5 Touring is going to launch globally on June 15th. And they're going to be having a lot of photographers there to talk about the, artistic execution of the company, NIO's amazing models, and NIO's improvements in Norway. So once again, it's going to be an interesting event. Until then, we'll wait and see what happens. Now, as far as the target rate probabilities go, we're expecting the Fed to pause because, yes, all this news about NIO is important, but what's even more important for this week is going to be the economic data. The market's expecting a pause. If we get the pause, the market's going to rip. If not, the market's going to tank. But when is all this data coming out? For tomorrow, we have the Consumer Inflationary Expectations Report coming out at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Watch that carefully. It's going to cause a big move in the markets. So the market's probably going to be kind of flat in the morning. Once we approach 11 a.m., expect a big move. By Tuesday, we have CPI coming out. That's going to be massive for the company, massive for the entire economy, massive for SPY and Tesla and everything. If CPI is too hot, the market's going to get a rug pull. If CPI is decent or close to expectations, market could hold up. And if CPI is very low, the market may pump off that. For Wednesday, after CPI comes out on Tuesday, we have Wednesday. The PPI report comes out. That's going to be important. And then we have FOMC. So 11 o'clock a.m. is the interest rate hike decision. That's when the news comes out about what they chose. Then at 11:30, just to clarify, 11:30 a.m. This is all in Pacific time. I'm sorry about that, guys. That's when we have the Fed conference. So in Eastern time, if you are in the East Coast, if you're in New York or Florida, this is going to be happening at 2 o'clock p.m. So I'm sorry about that, guys. That was Pacific time I just named. 2 o'clock p.m. is going to be Eastern time. So you're going to be watching that for the interest rate hike decision. And then for the press conference, it's going to be at 2:30 p.m. So make sure you watch all of this carefully. It's going to affect the market big time, especially NIO. Then we have some jobs numbers coming out for Thursday, lots of data from the Fed, and the big day is going to be Friday because we have lots of consumer sentiment reports coming out, and also it's OPEX, so lots of options expirations. So what I'm trying to say is every day is going to be very significant. Monday is not going to be that significant compared to Tuesday through Friday, but we do have consumer inflationary expectations data coming out. That's going to be very important for the market sentiment. So I'm expecting the market to trade very flat, not do a whole lot, and then get a very big move as soon as we get this data. Expect a big move, get ready for it. I want to warn you guys about that. Now, as far as NIO goes, we got high volume, a lot of buying pressure during the pump, followed by selling pressure too. And overall, it's still flat, but the short volume is dropping, which is a decent sign for the company. And finally, the price-price ratio is very flat. There's not much else going on with this. Mondays are only green about 49% of the time, so it's about 50-50. And finally, looking at the data, we have some crazy numbers here. We saw a crazy amount of NIO shares shorted on Friday. We saw about 24 plus million of them. So the shorts piled in. They're trying to manipulate NIO. They have a tendency of doing this on a day-to-day basis. So please be aware of this. There's a lot of manipulation in this stock, and they're continuing to double down on the company. But now let's talk about NIO, let's talk about SPY, and etc. So basically, SPY is stuck in this range, back and forth, fighting for 430 to the 431 range that I mentioned earlier. If it comes down, you're going to be watching support at 429, followed by 428.67 on the hourly 50 EMA, then 428.5, then 427.5, and 426. So lots of support and resistance. We're just going to trade a little sideways and see a big move depending on the data that comes out at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. And then for Tesla, it's going to trade a little sideways, but it does have this gap. So let me show you where the gap is. If it breaks the low of the day, if it breaks below this low, let me just hide these just so you can see it. If it breaks this low and the very lower 240s, it's going to likely fill this gap and come down to about 235. It's going to act as a magnet. If not, if it manages to hold the low it made, hold above 240, it has the potential to just range trade. And if it wants to break out, it has to break and hold above 250. It hasn't really done that. It touched 250, went a little above it, then just came right back down and failed to break it. So that's going to be your confirmation, a strong break above it. So far, it hasn't done that, so be patient on Tesla. But the odds do favor it cooling off first before the data comes out, and then seeing a bigger move after that. So that's what I'm seeing for Tesla. Finally, for the QQQ, if we're bullish, it's got to break 355.5 and hold it. If it breaks that, we're going to be see 356 and 357.66. If it breaks that high, it could get closer to 360. If we're bearish on this thing, it's going to come down to where the 50 is basically, and you're going to be looking at the 50 on the extended hours. So always include the extended hours, or at least include them most of the time, because I tend to do that when I trade. It gives you more data that's useful. If we're bearish crossing the 1 hour, so the odds favor maybe it cools off a little with Tesla, but we're going to be watching this 50. So to make it a retest of 353, if it breaks below that, we could see the 352 area. So all the way down here. That's going to be important support. It could drop a little harder if that does end up breaking in a hard manner, but 352 has some pretty decent support too, 352.5, so it could come down all the way there, then try to bounce. But then I'm anticipating that it might slow down a little bit in the morning before getting a big move, depending on this data, the consumer inflationary expectations at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So make sure you're ready for that. And finally, for NIO, what does all of this data mean? Well, where's my NIO chart? It's right here. If NIO is bullish, if NIO wants to make a nice move to the upside, it's got to break above this EMA right here. So we have the 50 at about 7.78, and then we have 7.78 at the 200. If it breaks both of those, it has the potential to make its way closer to about $8. If it breaks that, once again, we could see NIO fly to 8.2. If NIO is bearish, it's going to break below 7.7 and come down to about this 7.64, then potentially 7.5 area. The major supports around 7.3. We've touched that a couple of times. I don't see it dropping that low unless something bad happens. But for now, those are the levels I'm basically watching. Now, here's the thing about NIO. I'm anticipating it's just going to trade sideways to open this up around 7.5 to 8, just going back and forth and back and forth. And then I'm anticipating a very big move around 11 a.m. when the whole market reacts to this data. If NIO turns bullish, it could retest 8 and maybe even break above it. If it turns bearish, it's going to retest 7.5 and maybe break a little below it temporarily. I'm just anticipating some sideways action. I think that I'm not expecting too much craziness overall for tomorrow. I think it's going to get even more crazy by Tuesday and Wednesday until like Friday. I think those are going to be the days where it's crazier. But until then, do what you have to do and remain calm, cool, and collected. I thank you all for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. NIO to the moon is the long term is very bright. I also have some merch if you're interested in buying a tank top or a hoodie that says to the moon. Thank you for listening. NIO, Tesla, and the market to the moon, and peace out.